where the team which is not having any institutional ethics committee, they can approach this independent ethics committee and then they can get the protocol review. So now coming to ethics committee, now ethics committee which we have formed. Now what to do with the registration? We need to register this ethics committee with some organizations, so some regulatory authorities. So if my institution, if suppose there is a biomedical research dealing thesis, projects, all this dealing with research committee and do not have any clinical trial, then I need to have at least a biomedical research ethics institutional ethics committee. So for that, it needs to get registered. So I need to apply for registration. And if I have an ethics committee, will take care only clinical trials. So then I need to apply for clinical trials for that level. There is a form like CT01 in 8th schedule. For clinical trials, need to approach to CDSCO for this. Application is available via online portal, which is called SUGAV. So it is there in CDSCO website page. So I need to apply there and fill the form details there and apply for registration of my ethics committee, which is going to review clinical trial protocol. So once after application, I'll get a grant of registration via a seat clinical trial 8 schedule form, which is in the page number 236 of the guidelines. Then once I get the registration, it will be valid for 5 years. Once it is valid for 5 years, after 5 years, I need to renew that. So it's a 90 days prior to the date of expiry. I need to apply for renewal of registration with CDSCO for clinical trial ethics committee. So now coming to biomedical research. Suppose if my institution does not have any clinical trials, I am only having the academic biomedical research MD thesis or a DMD thesis, then my ethics committee need to apply registration with biomedical research under Department of Health and Research, which we call it a DHR. So DHR, the application needs to be submitted via NETHIC portal, which is available in DHR's web page. So after filling this, then I get a grant of registration, and that final registration will come in CT038 schedule, which is also there in the page 236 of the document guidelines, and the validity is for 5 years. Now, these particular any change in ethics committee member, its composition, if there is any change, then I need to approach to central licensing authority and inform that there is a change in my membership, or I have reconstituted my membership and I need to intimate that. So within 30 working days, I need to intimate. Suppose if my institution has both the things, I have MD/DNB theses, I also have clinical trials from the consultant. So what should I do? So I need to register for both the authorities separately. One at the SUGAM portal for clinical trial, another at the DHR for the BMR. So both registrations required if the ethics committee is taking care of both different types of. So now let us see how this ethics committee is composed. When we compose the ethics committee, we'll look how many members we require. It requires minimum 7 members and maximum 15 members can be a part of this ethics committee. So is there any age specific or gender? We look forward equal distribution of seniors and youngsters into the group. Gender, yeah, at least minimum one representative, one member should be from the women group should be there, at least one. And then multidisciplinary, multi-sectorial should be there. Medical, scientific, non-medical, non-scientific, like chairperson, member secretary, legal expert, social scientist, clinician, and a basic medical scientist like a pharmacologist to review a clinical trial or any trial which is having a drug in that. So there we need preferably a MD pharmacologist as a basic medical scientist in this member. So when we compose this ethics committee, if I am having an independent, institutional ethics committee, so 50% of this members should not belong to my institution, should be from outside my institution. These are called non-affiliated members. So these should be more than 50% of the members should be like 10 members. If I am having more than 5 should be not from my institution, should be from other institution. So when these members are formed, so what do their own objective, what the objective where they work is to safeguard the right of participant, their safety, well-being, balance the risk and participant environment to ensure they are fully informed and they have the equal right to withdraw from the study. So when they review the protocol, they maintain the utmost confidentiality, integrity while reviewing this, The committee will ensure the confidentiality of the research participant is mentioned. Personal information data is maintained confidential. Any conflict of interest any member is having for some protocol or studies, they need to declare that conflict of interest before beginning with the protocol. So now coming to the main composition, who all are these members? What is the roles of theirs? So we have one chairperson. We will need to have a chairperson in this committee, who will be usually a senior person from a very good reputed background. A member secretary who works in, who will be like an affiliated person, works all the time with the files in ethics committee, receive protocols and collect. Clinicians who gives a time for this ethics committee for the protocol review. Then a basic medical scientist who will be non-clinician, preferably MD pharmacologist, if especially when the clinical trials require a drug review. So that is the main MD pharmacology requirement is there for basic medical scientist, social scientist or theologist, legal expert. Earlier we used to tell lawyer, now it the terminology is legal expert, and a lay person who is not from any medical background. So I'll be discussing each and every role of these members. So let us see chairperson. Who is the chairperson? Chairperson basically qualification. Main thing for chairperson should be non-affiliated. If I'm my institutional ethics committee, then the chairperson of my institutional ethics committee should be not be from my institution, should be non-affiliated, a well-respected person from a very good background, prior experience, served and serving in ethics committee. Responsibility of this chairperson is to accountable for the independent, efficient functioning of committee, ensure active participation of all the members, especially those members who does not belong to institution, those members who are non-medical, non-scientific. So the chairperson should encourage a very good discussion from as well as from the non-medical and the non-scientific people. And whenever the minutes of the meeting is there, they can ratify. So member secretary, who is this member secretary? This person is from the institution, so affiliated from the institution, and possesses a very good knowledge and experience in clinical research ethics committee, and ensures an efficient, effective procedure for receives audio protocol, prepare the agenda for the meeting, set set the board for the meeting, make sure the quorum is met, run the committee meetings, prepare the minutes, and as well as issue letters and prepare the minutes and issue the approval letters for the protocols. So these are and organize training of the ethics committee members and prepare and respond for audits. Clinicians may be affiliated from the institution or non-affiliated. Individual who is having at least recognized medical qualification, expertise, and training. This person is required to do a scientific review of protocol involving the intervention. Why is it required? Rationale, benefit, risk, research design, methodology, sample size, and ongoing protocol review for any SAE or any deviation in the protocol, progress of the study or completion of the report. So all the clinical things are taken care by the clinicians. Basic medical scientist can be from the institution or can be from outside. And a medical person is required in case of ethics committee review clinical trials with drugs. The basic medical scientist should preferably be a pharmacologist, and the pharmacologist is required. The person, social scientist, philosopher, ethist, or theologist can be from institution or can be from outside. Qualification, expertise in social behavior, physiology, philosophy, theology, sensitive to local culture and moral values of the society. The person will review the proposal and ICD informed consent document which is submitted with an ethical lens and see what is the impact on community involvement and serve as a patient participant for the community representative. The legal expert can be from institution or from the outside, basic degree in law, and undertake the ethical review of proposal. Key documents are informed consent document and MOU agreement between the clinical trial sponsor and the hospital head of the institution, clinical trial agreement, regulatory approvals, insurance. All these documents will be legally reviewed by the legal expert, and the legal expert will interpret and inform to the committee during the meeting that so and so MOU or document is having these are the problems listed. Layperson. Now, layperson is a non-affiliated literate person, so purely non-affiliated. Like member secretary was affiliated to institution, the opposite non-affiliated layperson. Like chairperson, non-affiliated to institution. like that layperson also not affiliated, not from the institution, and represent a local community and review the proposal for ethical consideration. So when I say this meeting can be started, now this ethics committee is ready, now everybody is present and can be started. So what are those quorum requirements to say that all the members are present, now we can begin? Minimum 5 members should be present in the meeting room, minimum 5 members. And it should include medical, non-medical, technical or non-technical staff. Minimum 1 non-affiliated should be part of the quorum. And preferably the lay person should be the part of the quorum. If the lay person is not present, the meeting quorum is not met. The quorum for review of regulatory clinical trials should be conducted according to the current CDSCO requirement, which is MD pharmacology should be there to meet the quorum for this kind of trials. No decision is valid without fulfilling any of the quorum. So quorum is met, then only the meeting can be started. So medical members are clinicians with appropriate medical qualification. Technical members are persons with qualification related to particular branch in which study can be conducted. So terms of references, when the ethics committee is ready, then the invitation letter will go from the head of the institution to all the members, and they accept that we want to be the part of this member, and these are the terms, roles and responsibility, duration of your appointment tenure when you are supposed to be there for the ethics committee, and what the conditions of appointment. Generally, this membership will be for 2 to 3 years, which will be renewed and sent again one more letter to all the members from the head of the institution of that hospital. So this can be extended and can be documented in the SOP. These are some of the detailed documents to be submitted for EC. When I want to submit a protocol for ethics committee review, I need to submit all these listed clinical trial related documents which has to be submitted. So just an overview glance, not be going into detail because of the time constraint. So this is available in your ICMR guidelines, which can be seen what are the list of documents to be submitted for ethics committee before. Suppose if I want to submit a thesis, MD thesis, or to a biomedical research committee of the independent institutional ethics committee, then there is a list of checklist of documents. This is one sample only for reference purpose. So you can prepare for your own institution. These are the list of documents to be submitted, to be added to as a part of the thesis protocol submission for ethics committee. Now, types of review based on the protocol you submit. Now, you have submitted based on checklist to the ethics committee. The ethics committee will review the protocol documents. First, the member secretary will categorize what type of review is required. Is it required? Is it exemption from review? Means you don't have to come and present. It's okay. We will give you approval letter. That's called exemption for review. Which are the scenarios where it is required? The proposal should have less than minimal risk, where there is no link with identifier. Like your research project is not linking any patient identifier data. For example, you are conducting a research on data which is available on the public domain. So that can be exempted from review. But the decision can be made only by the member secretary after you submit. You cannot make a decision for exemption from review. Now, expedited review, a proposal that poses no more than minimal risk and may undergo expedited review, like research involving non-identifiable specimen, human tissues, blood bank studies, tissue banks, leftover clinical samples, can be expedited review can be done. Full committee review, where all the committee members will present and their research proposal will review all the proposals which involve research, vulnerable risk more than minimal, which is required for this. Now, once the protocol is reviewed, the decision is made by the ethics committee, like approved, revision with minor modification, revision with major modification, not approved or terminated. So these are the following decisions which will be made and communicated to you. These are the record keeping which ethics committee will keep, like they will have their standard of operating procedures. They will maintain all the maintain records, what you submitted for minimum 5 years, and additional documents which is related to compensation, records related to serious adverse event, medical management of trial subjects, compensation paid, procedures, EC tracker, registers, other documents like pest control checklist, virus use. All these documents are maintained in ethics committee as an archival or retrieval. There are trainings required for these members, so that is mandatory. Every member of the ethics committee shall be undergo such training. Any disqualification, they need to update that. So NDCT, GCP new amendments, induction training for new members and annual trainings. If ethics committee wants a quality accreditation, it's not mandatory, but they can approach NABH, AR accreditations. Quality improvement projects also ethics committee can take in an SAE non-compliance, or there is also a sitter per cap, which is also a quality improvement initiative to have a good quality ethics committee function. So coming to summary of key points, so ethics, institutional ethics committees, the clinical studies and VMR both will be there. For institution conducting both type of research, they should get registered with CIDSCO and DHR, SUGAM and ethic portal. Chairperson and layperson should not be from the institution. They should be from outside. At least 5 members are required to meet the quorum. Layperson is compulsory to be the part of the quorum. Periodic training of ethics committee members. These are the references. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ziauddin. It was a very comprehensive presentation regarding the ethic committee and the members and their responsibilities, what they have to do. I think there are 611 participants, but there are no questions in the chat box. But I would like to say some, because you have been on both sides of the table, a student earlier and now being a member highly. I think there is one question. Let me take that first question initially. The question is, if the legal is not present for EC, what should we do? From Dr. Nalini. If the legal representative is not present for ethic committee, what should we do?
Legal expert we need to have, sir. It's to meet the quorum. So legal expert to review the legal documents. The committee has to hold for the meeting for the legal expert. We need to proceed.
Okay, so legal
5 minimum quorum is required to meet the.
So legal expert is a must. So I think Dr. Nalini, your query has been responded. Another query is there, that is member secretary need to be a medical person?
Yes. So preferably it is medical person, which can be, if ICM on my slide you can see that is also written medical, non-medical. But medical person would be preferably can be there as a member secretary if the institution has any good qualified medical person to take that job. Because the member secretary role is to also to ensure the training of ethics committee.
Okay.
Members.
Okay. I think the participant has received his answer, her answer. As we are clearing the queries, many questions are appearing. So there is another query, that is there requirement for creating 2 ethics committee, one for CDSCO and another for NATIC registration? I think you have responded to it. You have well illustrated it, but still.
Yes. So if my institution is having only biomedical research, not clinical trials, then I will just register with the DHR and continue my ethics committee functioning. If my institution is having protocols, which is clinical trials, BABs or international new drugs, then I need to register with the CIDSCO portal, SUGAM portal, and both the portals should be registered, SUGAM as well as DHR. Because my ethics committee is reviewing both the documents, clinical trials as well as biomedical research.
So if we are conducting 2 types of studies or different type of studies, then we need to register for both of them. Yeah. I think Dr. Vinay has got his answer. Another question from Dr. Thorat. CDSCO inspects the IEC? If yes, how?
Yeah. So this is a central licensing authority. So anytime when they want to inspect, they can inspect the ethics committee. When they inspect, the inspectors, they come to the ethics committee, they review the SOP and they review the checklist and what are the ethics committee, how many approvals you have given, and which are the ethics proposals you have terminated and not in, or any non-compliance related to the law. So if I terminated some studies, I didn't inform to ethics committee, has not informed to CIDSCO, they'll ask explanation there. So any deviations and violations of the ethics committee, if they found, then the ethics committee will get the actions will be taken on the ethics committee by the CIDSCO. But yes, CIDSCO is bound and they can have any inspection to any ethics committee as per the.
Okay, so they will basically inspect all the documents which you have, which have been created while conducting the ethics committee meetings, and check all the documents. So I think Dr. Thorat has got his answer. There's another question from Dr. Judy. for qualitative studies, is IEC also required?
Yeah. So if my quality protocol is a quality improvement project in my department, does not require any interaction with the patient, does not require any consent in the taking identified data, then I can do a department quality improvement project which does not require institutional ethics committee approval. Now say this quality improvement project, I want to publish in a journal. So then I need to publish this outside my head of institution. And then I need an institutional ethics committee approval, which I will approach a biomedical research committee and interact. If my quality improvement project requires interaction of the patient, then I need consent. So consent also will become, and it will be part of this protocol and it will submit IC protocol.
So in different situations, if qualitative studies also can require IC approval. Another question from Dr. Shruti. What if there are 12 members? What is the number for complete quorum? I think you have given the complete answer, but still we will shoot.
So we get that institution because our institution we get more than 12 members also. Why? Because it's good to have. So sometimes we get a protocol which is very specific to nephrology. Then a nephrologist being a part of the committee during that, or sometimes we don't have a subject matter expert. Then we take a separate subject matter expert opinion for that particular protocol to review. So if you're having a 12 members can be part, that's not a must to have 12 members. But what is must to have is 5 members should be there as a quorum. In that layperson is very must to have that part of the quorum.
Okay. So at least 5 members should be present, and a person should be there.
Layperson, basic medical scientist, legal expert, clinician.
And members 3 and chairperson will be there.
Social science, yeah.
Another question is there. How does the presence of a social scientist or NGO representative impact the ethical review process?
Yeah, definitely it impacts very much. They will look in a different lens, which we won't think as a medical person. So immediately they will ask, how is it? Why are you burdening this patient with additional investigation for the sake of study? Then why does the patient have to pay money because it's not a part of your standard of care? These kind of questions come from them, and they look very social. This thing, and they look into informed consent document. Have you mentioned that risk in that patient was not informed? So you have to include that also. Even that questionnaire, that 5 minutes it will take for me to fill this questionnaire. So that also need to mention in ICD saying that this will require your 5 minutes to fill this questionnaire. Was it not informed? These kind of things are very valuable picked by the social scientists. They are very valuable to the ethics committee.
Yeah, surely enough, because we as a scientists are interested in doing the study, but there must be some persons who are not interested in or they are away from all the scientist activity, and they have their responses also required. Yeah, definitely they also have a certain. So I think most of the questions which have been put up by the participants have been answered. There is another question.
Sir, rest of the questions can be answered by Dr. Ziauddin in the question answer chat box, sir.
Yeah, sure, sir. Yeah. Because we are running over the time.
Yeah.
So I thank Dr. Ziauddin for his comprehensive talk, and I hand over the session to Dr. Rani Madam.
Now I request Dr. Rani Indira Sinha Madam to introduce today's second speaker, Dr. Amruta Sil Madam. This session will be for 20 minutes, followed by again question and answer session for 10 minutes. Over to Rani Indira Sinha Madam.
Welcome everyone to the second topic of today. Due to the generosity of Team NPT, namely Dr. Dakle sir, Dr. R.K. Dikshit sir, and Dr. Kamal sir, and the entire distinguished members of NPT, I have the honor and privilege to introduce a pharmacologist of great repute, an academician whose achievements have been recognized and awarded at several times, podiums and forums, and who is the second speaker of today's workshop, Professor Dr. Amrita Sil, MD, FRCP. Dr. Sil is presently working as Professor Pharmacology in a medical college of Kolkata. She is chairperson of IEC of Rampur Hat Government Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata. She is assistant editor of IADVL Research Compendium and deputy editor of Indian Journal of Dermatology. She has more than 50 publications to her credit. Her talent was recognized and awarded as early as 2011 when she was bestowed with Professor J.K. Mohanty and Professor Q. Ahmed Prize for Young Scientists. In 2012, she was judged the best speaker at EZIPS and also got Dr. S. Mukherjee Gold Medal. She was given UK SATE Award at IPS Con 2014, Best Paper Award at ISRPT Con 2022, EZIPS 2023, NAPTICON 2024. She is a renowned speaker for GCP training, research methodology workshops, pharmacovigilance workshops, BCME, and CISP workshops. Over to Madam Sill to deliver her much awaited talk on National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research Involving Human Participants, ICMR 2017. Over to you, ma'am.
Is the screen visible, ma'am?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rani Indira Sinha, madam, for your kind introduction. And I thank and am grateful to all the organizers at NPT for inviting me to speak on the ICMR 2017 National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research Involving Human Participants. Now, ICMR is the apex body in India, which conducts, formulates, coordinates, and also promotes research throughout India. It not only funds projects, but also upholds the various ethical values that are required for biomedical and health research. Way back in 1980, ICMR published this pink color booklet, which was called the Policy Statement on Ethical Consideration involving human subjects. And then this policy statement was further improved as ethical guidelines in 2000 as ethical guidelines for biomedical research on human subjects. In 2006, these guidelines were again revised and the terms human subjects was recoined as human participants. And on the recent guidelines on which I will be discussing today, it was framed and released on 12th October 2017, which are the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research Involving Human Participants. Now, these ethical guidelines are a very comprehensive set of guidelines, which was prepared over very careful and prolonged deliberations by various academicians, by various stakeholders, from administrators to industries, various experts across the country, across many disciplines. And they were updated and had a very unique sections which were harmonized and updated with the national and various prevalent international guidelines. Now, these ethical guidelines, they are applicable to all biomedical, socio-behavioral, public health research which are conducted in India and involves human participants, not only them, their biological material, and also their data. Now, this ICMR 2017 guidelines are the only ethical guidelines which were accepted by the Department of Health and Human Services, USA, from a developing country. So we can understand or gauge the importance of these guidelines. Now, the guidelines are based on the primary 4 pillars or principles of ethics, namely autonomy, which is respecting a person's freedom; non-maleficence, which means doing no harm; justice, that means conducting the research in all fairness without any discrimination to all the participants; and beneficence, that is the choices we make in the research is done in the intention of doing good and doing benefit to the patients. Now, there are 12 sections in the ICMR guidelines, and it has 170 pages. This book has 170 pages. And there are, in the 12 sections, the ones that have been highlighted in yellow are the ones which have come very new in the guidelines, which were not previously there. So I will be taking you through the general ethical issues, the responsible conduct of research, ethical review procedures, informed consent procedures, vulnerability research, research guidelines or ethics involving clinical trials, public health research, socio-behavioral research, also on human genetic testing and research, biological material biobanking, and finally research during humanitarian emergencies and disaster. So first things first, one of the principal general ethical issues we always face, either as an investigator or as a part of the ethics committee, is the balance between the benefit and the risk. So benefit is the favorable outcome to the individual, to the community, or to the society, which may be a direct one or an indirect, whereas risk is the probability of harm or any discomfort caused to the participant. So evaluation of risk should be a continuous process, and that is done by the ethics committee at various meetings, at various reviews, and in the continuing reviews. Now, as I have told that all the stakeholders, be it the sponsor, be it the investigator, or be it the ethics committee, should have a balance between the risk and the benefits, with primarily benefits or having potential benefits in the research study. Now, there are 4 categories of risks which are given in the ethical guidelines 2017. That is less than minimal risk, low risk, and high risk. Now, less than minimal risk, it means that the risk in the research study is either very less or nil. For example, if you are doing some research on data that is available in the public domain or meta-analysis, that becomes less than minimal risk. Now, minimal risk means that it is the discomfort that is anticipated in the research, which is not greater than that you are obtaining or ordinarily encountered in day-to-day routine, in day-to-day life or routine daily life. For example, if the research is on suppose any samples which can be collected through a non-invasive method. For example, you are collecting hair samples or nail samples or urine samples. So that can be a minimal risk category. Now, low risk means which has minor increase over minimal risk. For example, if you are having placebo-controlled trials, or you are having a small amount of blood being taken for research, that will amount to low risk. And high risk are usually the interventional studies that we do with drugs, with devices, with various procedures, or maybe you're doing an invasive procedure like a lumbar puncture, or maybe a bronchoscopy. So all these will fall under the high risk. Now, these are the categories of risk which the ethics committee, while evaluating or while reviewing, will take into consideration. And then they will decide whether your research proposal is exempt from review if they are less than minimal risk, whether there can be expedited review if there is minimal risk, and if a full review has to be done, that is, it is either in the low risk or high risk category, but it is done on an individual case-to-case and individual case-to-case basis. Now, coming to the next issue, that is the privacy and confidentiality. Privacy is the right of the individual, and by this right, the person can control what information he wants to give, how it is to be collected, stored, and shared, whom he will give the data, and to whom. Confidentiality, on the other hand, is the obligation of the researcher, the research team, and the organization to protect the information that the individual gives you. And this protection should be from unauthorized access, from unauthorized use, from any disclosure, modification, loss, or theft. Now, it is good to understand at this point that you have to be, or the ethics committee, both the ethics committee and all the stakeholders, they are party to this confidentiality. And by any means, you have to protect the right, safety, dignity, and safeguard his information, because sometimes the information is very sensitive. Suppose it is about the sexual orientation, it may be about the genetic information, it may be about the HIV status, whatever it might be, the information should be safeguarded. And however, the researcher should tell the participant from beforehand that there are some potential limitations to this strict confidentiality. That is, at certain point of time, the researcher may have to disclose the private information to some places with prior permission of the ethics committee. For example, if the court of law wants some information, then the researcher has to give the information. If there is a potential life risk, suppose the patient has a suicidal ideation, or maybe the patient is HIV positive, and you have to make sure that the partner of the patient knows about it. If there is a public health risk, or if there is a serious adverse event, then the blinding or the privacy confidentiality has limited areas over here. And when the research is with biological samples or medical records and data, then coding or anonymization of personal information, if it is there, then the privacy and confidentiality is protected. And if some publication is going to be done where personal information is going to be published, or some photographs is to be published, then that should be done with adequate masking so that the identity of the patient is not revealed. Coming to payment for participation, if applicable, the patient should be reimbursed for all the travel cost, the food cost, the loss of wages, or any problems that he might encounter. But it should be always seen that the patient or the participant does not end up paying extra when he's participating in the research. So for routine care, whatever he's spending, that is fine. But for extra investigations or extra treatment just for research, he should not be paying that. And the ethics committee must review how much the patient is going to be paid as reimbursement if any additional medical services are required, because these payments should not amount to inducement. So that should be taken care of by the ethics committee. Now, payment for participation should be differentiated from compensation, because compensation is also financially giving the patient some amount of compensation for any injury which is related to the research. It may be a direct physical injury, it may be a psychological injury, it may be a social harm. And if the patient dies due to the research, then in case of death, the participants dependent are entitled to financial compensation. Now, how much should be the compensation, or what is exactly, how exactly the compensation is calculated, will be dealt on in the next day's lecture. But let us know for now that the researcher is responsible for reporting all the serious adverse events to the ethics committee within 24 hours of knowledge of the SAE. And the ethics committee then reviews the relatedness and discusses among itself what will be the compensation quantum. And this is all good for sponsors for those sponsored trials, but those research which are being conducted in the institution, suppose as a PGT thesis, or maybe an academic clinical trial, or maybe an investigator-initiated research. Here, the investigator also becomes the sponsor, and then paying out of pocket becomes a problem. So the ethics guidelines also mentions that these institutions where research is being conducted should have a corpus fund, and this corpus fund can be built from the institutional overhead charges and various grants to the institute, so that the institute can be able to pay some amount of compensation to the affected party. Now, coming to a very important discussion, that is the conflict of interest. Now, conflict of interest, the definition, by definition, it means that when the professional judgment of concerning a primary interest, for example, the participant's welfare or the validity of the research, is clouded or unduly influenced by a secondary interest. The secondary interest can be a financial interest, can be a non-financial interest, maybe an academic interest, maybe a political interest, or maybe a personal interest. So you are not being able to judge the project properly for its validity, or whether it is beneficial for the participant, just because you have something else in your mind, which may be a financial benefit, which may be a non-financial benefit also. And the ICMR guidelines, they mention very nicely how you are going to deal with this conflict of interest. It mentions that declare the conflict of interest at the start, and this conflict of interest can be at the level of the researcher, can be at the level of the ethics committee member, can be at the level of the institution or sponsor. So after declaration of the conflict of interest, it should be managed according to the standard operating procedures of the ethics committee. And since the ethics committee has to be registered, it has to have a valid SOP, and that SOP will not be accepted if it does not have SOP regarding how to deal with conflict of interest. And the how to deal with conflict of interest is written very well in points in the guidelines. Now, coming to the next issue of community engagement. Now, community is tried to be engaged where you are dealing with culturally sensitive research, so that the community responds more and more to your healthcare needs and to your healthcare research. Sometimes the members of the community, they are suppose if the particular institution is doing research about a particular community, then members from the community can be incorporated or represented in the ethics committee, or they can be a special invitee member for those proposals. Also, the community advisory board can act as an interface between the community and the community individuals and the ethics committee and the researcher, and thereby, they can modulate or moderate whatever the researcher is trying to say to the community at large. But however, when you are dealing with community engagement, if there is a type of consent we know as the tiered consent, where initially the consent is given by the group leader or the community elder, and then but at the same breath, it is good to know that even if the community elder or the CAB says that, okay, this research is fine, you can go ahead, but it does not replace individual informed consent. So by tiered consent in community engagement, it means that first consent is taken from the gatekeeper of the community. It may be an elder, it may be a head, it may be a panchayat leader. And next, you take individual informed consent from the participant of the research. So this brings us to another important area of distributive justice, which means that the benefits and burdens should be equally shared, and everyone should have a piece of cake with cherry on top. And if there is any concern about benefit sharing, now benefits can be direct or indirect. By indirect, it means that the community can have a benefit. Suppose you set up a community clinic, suppose a school, or maybe some hygiene practices. So whatever the benefit is to be given, that should be shared. That should be discussed from previously, like what should be done, and the ethics committee should approve it. Only then you can go ahead and do that benefit sharing. Now, coming to responsible conduct of research, this is a very new area which was incorporated into 2017 guidelines. And here it says that whatever research is being done, whatever research is being published, the value of the research, the benefit of the research is dependent on the integrity of the researcher. That means if anything, if there is any misconduct, for example, falsification of fabrications or any plagiarism, then the research falls short. And the researcher should be aware that the resources of biomedical research are precious and they should be used judicially. Many institutions, they have something called a research office, which maintains a liaison with the ethics committee, with the students, with the researchers. They go through how the grants are getting disbursed, what protocols are what protocols are being submitted, how to go ahead with that. So they coordinate the entire thing, and it is responsible. It is the responsibility of the researcher, of the institution, to see that these offices, they perform well. Also, before collecting any data, be it a biological sample, be it a photograph, be it a process, be it a patent, whatever it might be, prior authorization is a must. For any observational study or interventional study, if the study is registered in the Clinical Trial Registry India, then it increases the authenticity, improves the transparency of the data. And because the data is publicly available and you can go through it, what was supposed to get collected and what is being collected. Now, coming to another area, that is collaborative research. Sometimes there are national collaboration between one or more institutes and also some international collaboration. And here the main issues are who owns the data. What about the joint publication? Who will be there in the first author? Who will be there in the third author? And also whether the research outcomes are commercialized. To deal with this, the guidelines states that there should be a memorandum of understanding from beforehand. There should be a material transfer agreement from beforehand. And also there should be ethics approval from collaborating institutes regarding how these collaboration will be conducted, and an individual ethics committee of the collaborating institute should be like, should be in talking terms to each other. And there should be policies in the institutions regarding any misconduct, whether any fabrication of data, whether any falsification of data or plagiarism. Now, ethics committee was just, deliberated on previously by the previous speaker, Dr. Ziauddin, and I won't be going into the details of the ethics committee. And now informed consent, as it was said in the last day, that it should be freely given and it should be in a language which is understandable by the participant. Coming to a very important topic, that is the vulnerability, which is a new topic in this guidelines. Previously, it was a part of general ethical principles. Now, vulnerable patients or vulnerable participants are those who have relatively or absolutely, they are not capable of protecting their own interests. So they can be socially, politically, or economically disadvantaged. For example, tribals, refugees, migrants, homeless, those who are in disaster situations. They can be, vulnerability can also be seen in those who have diminished autonomy. So they fear that if they don't participate, there can be retaliation. And usually this is seen when they are in a hierarchical hierarchical area. For example, students, defense personnel, prisoners, or institutionalized individuals. Also, some people who are suffering from terminally ill diseases or cancers, they might participate in the study just because they do not have anything, they think that participating in this study might lead to some good, but because vulnerable, they also are rendered vulnerable because they might think that they are going to get benefit, and that is the reason they are participating. So even the mentally ill patients, those who have cognitive impairment, they can't take decisions by themselves, and they are vulnerable because their LAR or the legally authoritative representative takes the consent on their behalf, gives the consent on their behalf. So it is a duty of the researchers, of the ethics committee, of the sponsors to look at whether they are dealing with vulnerable population. And it is our duty to protect their rights, protect their dignity, and safeguard them from any mishaps that we might presume could happen. So it is not that if you are a vulnerable population, you do not include them in research. They do have an equal right to be included in the research, but they should not be just solely recruited because they should not be a go-to persons because they are not free to give their informed consent. And by all means, we should see that participants' autonomy is respected. And if the patients cannot decide by themselves, for example, there's a cognitive decline or the patient is unconscious, so the consent should be taken from the legally acceptable representative. So if the research includes vulnerable people, then the SOPs of the institutional ethics committee should be such that they protect the right, safety, and dignity of these patients, And there are additional safeguards regarding maintaining the privacy and confidentiality of these patients. For example, there can be more and more reviews. There can be more and more, monitoring of those research which are done with vulnerable population. Now, coming to an important aspect of the guidelines, which talks about the various ethical issues of clinical trials of drugs and other interventions. The guidelines mention the general guidelines regarding the risk and benefit, the therapeutic misconception, the phases of clinical trials, the SAE reporting, and compensation. But it also says that all the regulatory clinical trials, they should follow the NDCT 2019 guidelines, which will be taken up the next day. Now, very recently in March 2025, ICMR updated the ethical requirements which is required for research in integrative medicine. And by integrative medicine, it means that one or more Ayush practices are being in the trial along with the modern medicine. So the ICMR guideline says that there should be two subject matter experts of the relevant Ayush system. And they should also be considered as a part of the ethics committee quorum for decision making. Now, if the medicinal product from Ayush is already approved for clinical practice, then they will not require any additional safety studies. But if they are new and they are not coded traditional medicines, then the relevant regulatory procedures of generating safety data should be in place. Now, other specific clinical trials like the bioavailability, bioequivalence studies, the device trials, the surgical interventions, they all find their place in the guidelines. For surgical interventions, if they are new ones, then they should be compared with if they are modified ones, they should be compared with the established ones. And if they are new ones, then there should be some modeling data or some animal data before the ethics committee allows such trials. Now, clinical trials in HIV patients or AIDS patients, phase 1 is permissible in the patients themselves. And because we don't do the trials on the healthy volunteers in phase 1, in patients who are suffering from, when we are talking about AIDS or HIV drugs or vaccines. And if this is also same for oncology trials, because even in oncology trials, phase 1 is permitted in cancer patients. And it should always be remembered that in HIV trials or the life partner should be the partner of the patient should be given an idea about the HIV status of the patient. And there should be an audio recording of any new drug which is being tested for HIV. Now, coming to a very important set of trials like the investigator-initiated trials or the academic trials. So these are usually done for any off-label use of the drug, and they are not for any commercial use. So here the investigator assumes the roles and responsibility of not only the investigator, but also of the sponsor. And these trials might not require any regulatory approval because they are not for any commercial purposes, but only the ethics committee approval. Now, coming to another very important hue and cry which happens in the ethics committee when you give a placebo-controlled trial. So the guidelines very explicitly say that placebo-controlled trials can be conducted when there are no established effective therapy, when withholding an effective therapy will not expose the participant to harm, and the disease is self-limited. But there are a few safeguards that should be in place when you are conducting placebo-controlled trials. That is, there should be clear-cut withdrawal criteria, intensive monitoring, and rescue medications. The researchers can use an add-on trial design that is a standard of care plus placebo and standard of care plus the investigational product. Expose fewer patients to the placebo group, and always ensure a transition to the standard of care or active medication after the research is completed in the placebo group. So coming to another domain, that is the public health and socio-behavioral research. These are usually taken up by the community medicine people, like epidemiological studies, implementation research, program monitoring, program evaluation, surveillance, registries, demographic surveys. So these are all a type of research where where the participant does not understand whether this is a public health practice or whether it is a public health research. So that should be clear from beforehand. And it is good to understand that these research, these interventions, benefits and risk, they are not limited to the individuals, but they also influence the community. And also they have a potential to exploit the vulnerable population. So it is, so the ethics committee need to monitor what the research is about. And there should be also the stakeholder engagement. That is, in any public health research, the stakeholders are not only the researchers and ethics committee, but also the government, and also the public, also the NGOs which are dealing with public health. And over here also the consent is a bit different. There is a gatekeeper consent followed by the individual consent, because we are dealing with the community and public, and also a broad consent by the community, community elders, followed by an individual opt-out option in public health and social behavioral research. Now, coming to human genetics testing and research, this is a very new area in the guidelines. It talks about that the risk in human genetic testing is more psychological than physical, and it is genetic counseling is required. And the team of researchers should not only include clinicians, but also geneticists and counselors and lab personnel. If any genetic research is being conducted and the results are going to be declared, then that might lead to some stigmatization, maybe over paternity issues, maybe over a recessive, autosomal recessive, disease, whatever it might be. So confidentiality is very, very important. And newer genomic technologies like the genome-wide scans, the exome sequencing, these are coming up. And so as more and more technologies are coming up, more and more newer ethical concerns are being evaluated. And this is, these ethics guidelines are going to grow in this sector. So what is important is to safeguard the vulnerable population. Sometimes it is required for confidentiality to delink data. And also there is something called the secondary participant. Suppose you are doing a pedigree research where you require not only the patient, but also his family members. So if you require information from the family members, they are regarded as the secondary participants, and informed consent should be taken from them also. So the researcher, he cannot reveal the genetic information to the family members without the consent of the participant, to protect any stigmatization of the patient. And also for any future genetic research, storage of sample and appropriate consent for future use of sample should be there. Coming to biological materials, biobanking. So even this is a new section in the guidelines. And the main thing about this is about confidentiality. The guidelines very nicely talks about three types of samples, three types of biological materials. It can be anonymized or unidentified, where there is no link to the person who has given the sample. It can be anonymized. That means it can be, systemically de-identified, and that can be reversible or irreversible, or can be identifiable. So any biological sample, the ownership of the sample rests with the participant, and the biobank or the institute who stores the sample becomes the custodian. By no means the researcher has any claim over the biological sample. So it is also the ethics committee should see that the proper oversight is in place, the material transfer documents are in place, the data transfer agreement is in place, and MOU is in place. If some research is going to be done on biological sample, and transfer of biological sample is going to be done. Now, informed consent regarding the sample, it can be a broad consent, or it can be a specific consent, or the consent can be taken again if the sample is required later on for some other purposes. So research during humanitarian and emergencies and disasters, this was there in the 2017 guidelines, and it proved to be very important when the COVID pandemic took its stand. Because here it already talked about what should be done for preparing, for preparing documents, for preparing questionnaires from beforehand. Before the emergency has come. It talks about increased vulnerabilities, and for any disaster struck area, the patients or the participants won't understand whether it is a relief or whether it is a research. So the ethics committee should overview any research which is being conducted during these emergencies and disasters. And in the guidelines in 2017, they have talked about teleconferencing, about expedited review. And this COVID pandemic, during COVID pandemic, the national guidelines of ethics committee reviewing came up with various extra guidelines regarding electronic consent, regarding digital signature, because that time isolation was there, and expedited review, that is turnaround time of 24 to 72 hours. The ICMR also prepared an SOP for ethics review. So like this is to be prepared from beforehand if you are trying to do a research on any emergency or on any disaster, for example, flood, earthquake, fire, anything. With this, I'm going to conclude my talk that ICMR 2017 guidelines are a comprehensive guidelines on human research. The ethics committees and the researchers can go to these guidelines for seeing what are the review procedures, what are the guidelines for various type of research, and for framing SOPs. There are newer sections on responsibility of research, on informed consent process, on biological material, on genetic information. And all the stakeholders of research should be aware of the guidelines. I would like to end my presentation by giving this, link. This link gives an updates of whatever ICMR updates are coming because I have been talking about the 2017 guidelines. Nearly every year ICMR comes up with guidelines, for example, for children, for AI, for commercial samples, whatever it might be. Please try to go and see if there are any other improved guidelines, any updated guidelines in the website. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Sil, for this very enriching, comprehensive talk that has covered nearly all the relevant areas. And I think it has answered most of the queries arising in the minds of researchers, because I can see no questions have come up in the chat box.
Madam, questions are in question and answer session.
Question answer, yeah.
Amruta, you can go ahead with
Showing
that.
on my screen, sir.
Okay.
I will read it. Okay, no
Yeah,
issue.
yeah, sure, sir.
First question is, what are the additional safeguards recommended by ICMR to protect the child participants or vulnerable participants, you meant to say?
Yeah. So for child participants, an extra thing that we do is we take informed assent. For children less than 7 years, no assent is whatsoever required. For children who are aged 7, only the LAR or the parents' consent is required. For children who are 7 to 12 years of age, an oral consent is required from the child in addition to the parents' consent. And if the child is more than 12 years of age and less than equal to 18 years of age, then a written assent is required from the child along with the informed consent of the parents. Now, if the child says no, then it is a no, we cannot go ahead with the research. And one more thing is that for children, it is the ICMR guidelines, they say that if you are going to do any research on a child, then either the disease has to be a childhood disease, or if the disease affects both the child and the adult, proper safety data should be there in the adults. Only then you can go ahead and conduct it in children.
In addition to that, we can go ahead with the frequent monitoring of the trial of the child participant.
Yeah.
So next question is, in this digital era where all the information being collected in digital format, digital hacking is so common, how to protect the confidentiality about information given by the subject?
Yeah, for this, the guideline says that for any data, there should be data encryption. It is there in the guideline. So like you have to consult your IT person and see how the data can be encrypted and cannot be accessed by, the hackers.
Correct. So any provision of compensation in case of non-sponsored research project.
Yeah, that I
You
was
already
trying to say
mentioned.
you. Yeah, to
Yes.
tell that any academic clinical trial or investigator initiated trial, research study, if there is a serious adverse event and if there is some sort of injury, then the ethics committee will calculate an amount of compensation that has to be paid. Now, since in this non-sponsored research project, the investigator himself is the sponsor, so there should be a provision in the institute regarding there should be a corpus fund from maybe institute overhead charges, from various grants that the institute gives, so that part payment can be done. So this is, a very tricky question actually, because if the institute does not have that corpus fund, it is very tricky to conduct a trial in the academic, just an academic clinical trial.
And in most of the institute, they are going to go ahead with the memorandum of understanding or undertaking from the PI if there is an international trial, so that in future, if something wrong happens, that PI should be responsible to give at least pre-medical management, and if the ethics committee recommends financial compensation, then he should be responsible.
Yeah, so that is a risk to the investigator actually. So
Yes, yes.
if many government institutions who do not have this corpus fund, there is limited,
Research.
research of these non-sponsored trials.
Correct, correct. The next question is, what is the name of consent given by head of community?
Huh?
What is the
Oh,
name of
acha,
the
acha.
consent?
So it is a tired consent, we say. It is a tired consent or a group consent. And initially, it is a gatekeeper consent.
Correct.
So after gatekeeper consent, the individual informed consent is also required.
The next question is, clinical trial in psychiatric patient, how approval and what are the guidelines and what measures are taken before the intervention?
Okay, for psychiatric patients, since they are a vulnerable group because they have cognitive decline in some cases, there can be suicidal ideation. So before taking any intervention, before conducting any clinical trial, it is good to have in your informed consent that the LAR should be the consent from the LAR should be there. That is one. And then if the researcher comes across that any problem is going to happen with the psychiatric patient, then that should be informed very readily to the LAR.
Okay. The next question is, for example, we are conducting studies in school-going children by collecting the data, especially adolescents, regarding childhood mental health issues and childhood sexual abuse, whether we have to take consent from parents or teachers, and whether priorly, if we had informed and taken permission from principal, is enough or not.
So this is again a vulnerable population, and here also initial gatekeeper consent is from the principal or the teacher, and then again you have to ask the child regarding his assent. Now, if the child says yes, only then you go ahead with whatever research you have. If the child says no, then you cannot force him to participate in your research.
The last question, are draft 2024 guidelines finalized? It may be they may be seeing Indian GCP guidelines.
They are the GCP guidelines which came in November 2024. They are the GCP guidelines, not the ICMR guidelines. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It is still in draft. Within 2 to 3 months, it may be finalized, and that may be notified by the DCGI only, not by the ICMR. So all these are questions were there. Only one question was remaining. Over to Dr. Rani Indra Sinha, madam.
Yes, so thank you, sir, for taking those questions, asking ma'am to answer those questions. Before we end, can I pose one question for ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you speak something on the publication issues after research results?
publication issues regarding, sir, madam, I didn't understand.
After research, is it necessary to publish our results or?
Sir, madam, it is publish or perish now. So,
For promotion, it is needed.
so actually we need to publish our results, because we need other people also to know what we are working on, what the results of our research is, and so that there is no duplication of the results also, right? And moreover, you know, one of the important part of publication is that promotion for NMC affiliated institutions. You need to publish, right?
Yes.
Also for evidence purpose, we need to publish it.
Yes, yes.
So thank you, ma'am, for covering all the questions. And I hand over now to Dr. Dakle, sir.
Thank
to
you,
bring
madam.
well.
So I
Thank you,
am.
sir.
I am audible. If you allow me, I can.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Thank you very
Go ahead.
much. Yeah, it is the announcement for all the participants. Thank you very much, all the participants, for making this GCP again a huge success. And today's session gone wonderful under the both speakers who have given excellent deliberation, and our both the moderators. I wish that we will getting their blessings in the coming sessions also. And under the excellent leadership of GCP leader Dr. Ganesh Dhakle, who is the star of the GCP in the country, we are literally fortunate to have a person like Ganesh Dhakle sir. And this GCP workshop is going excellent. I just wanted to make some announcement that certificates will be started sending after the end of the workshop. And we are regularly sending PowerPoint presentation and all the related material along with the video recording to all the participants on their emails. Those who are not getting our emails, it is high probability that they have mentioned their wrong mail IDs, so that their proper mail ID is not registered. Otherwise, we are sending it regularly. Please, if you are not getting our mail, please contact on our email ID, office@nationalpharmacology.org. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation. Thank you all.
So
Thank
thanks
you.
to both speakers, Dr. Mohammad Ziauddin as well as Dr. Amruta Sil madam, for their excellent, concise and conceptual presentation, as well as our moderators, Dr. Alok Dikshit sir and Dr. Rani Indira Sinha madam, for their nice moderation. Lastly, my sincere thanks to all participants for posting their all questions in the chat box as well as question and answer session. So with this, we have completed our 3 sessions. Only 1 session is remaining, and that will be takes place on 27th of March at 3 p.m. Till then, thank you all. Bye bye. Thank you all, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.